Hello, math fans. Answering a question on the discussion board. I have previously in the term posted videos about labeling graphs, finding links, correctly thinking about what's given and what you want. And I think I will make a follow-up video to this where I just do like 12 or 13 different volume questions. But ultimately it boils down to this. So there seems to be a common question. So I'm just going to focus on this one point. And so if I was sitting with you right now, I would label a bunch of points like this. And this is the heart of what this is about. And I would ask you, how far is that? And I hope you would see that if things are lined up like this, you can do the top minus the bottom, or you can just think about lengths. You can think, this is 10, this is 3, and so that length is 7. Or you can think about it as top minus bottom. When we say that, you're doing the y values. However you think about it, it's 7. So I don't care if you think about it one way or the other, just make sure you label it 7, okay? Let's talk about that for these other values. So what happens when we start to introduce negative numbers? We get a little more uncomfortable. But you should see it's still top minus bottom. It's still going to be 3 minus negative 2, which is 5. Or you can think of it as positive numbers and call this 3 and call this 2 and say it's 5. Both are the same. It also works if both are negative. But in these problems, we're typically trying to find a length. And so your final answer will always be positive. So we're going to say this, and then I'll say how this applies to the question that was asked. How far is this? Now, I would just look at it and say 2. But if you're someone that likes to do top minus bottom, you have to do it in this order. Negative 2 minus negative 4. And notice that comes out to be positive 2. Or you can think about it as this is 2, this is 4, so this is 2. So in all of these cases, if you label it just as if it's positive numbers, or if you do top minus bottom, they're both fine. A lot of times in class I just read off the value because I've seen too often where somebody subtracts in the wrong order and they get a nonsensical answer. Okay, so how does that apply to a given situation? Let's say we have a function. Let's just pick one. How about y is equal to 2x plus 3? Let's have some other function. I don't know, y equals x squared. And let's say we have some line down here, y equals negative 4. And you are trying to label, so someone tells you that from here to here is x squared, and this is 4. So I typically, if I'm trying to label how far these two things are away from each other, I just make all the numbers positive because it just makes sense to me to say x squared plus 4. Is that length. So the length from here is x squared plus 4. But if you are not into that and you always want to do top minus bottom, that's okay. But you have to label correctly. So you have to label this, the top, y equals x squared. And what we're saying is the point is x comma x squared. We're doing exactly what we did over here. And then we're saying the point down here is x comma negative 4. And then you do top minus bottom, which is going to be x squared minus negative 4. Either way, you get x squared plus 4. Now to the question that was asked by the student. The student had a situation where this was labeled y, and they had some sort of, this was a shell, and they were saying, can I just do top minus bottom? And the answer to that question is yes. But what they did was incorrect. They labeled this negative 2 minus y. And that's not correct. That is not this length. And this is part of the problem with the subtraction. If you get it in the wrong order, your answer doesn't make sense. For example, if y is 3, and I label this point, and this is x comma 3, and this is x comma negative 2, this does not give the right answer, because if you plug a 3 in here, you get a negative 5, and that's not negative 5, it's 5. So they subtracted in the wrong order. They needed to do top minus bottom. It should have been y minus negative 2, which would have been y plus 2. It is because of errors like this that I'm somewhat of an advocate of getting rid of the negatives completely and just labeling lengths, because I feel like if you do that, you're much less likely to make an error like this. And so that distance is y plus 2. Okay, I will follow up with a separate video, but the same goes if you're doing right minus left. It's the same idea. So you can either label them as positive numbers and then make conclusions appropriately, or you can do top minus bottom, but make sure you're very clear about what's the top and what's the bottom. And if you're doing top minus bottom, include the negatives as you subtract. So do y minus negative 2. Okay, hope that answers that question, but I'll follow up with volume questions.